The Chargers front office has created a beautiful problem for themselves. For the first time in years, they've built legitimate depth across nearly every position group. But here's the thing about depth. It means some talented players are going to be left out in the cold when roster cuts come around. Now, this is a serious concern, and before moving further, I want to know what you think about this. Which position group do you believe will have the most surprising cuts this season? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I have a feeling we're going to see some names that shock people when final cuts are made. What's up, Chargers fans? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Chargers. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about breaking down everything you need to know about the Bolts. Okay, let's start with the obvious position, quarterback. Everyone's been talking about Trey Lance and that guaranteed money the Chargers threw at him. But here's my take after looking at this roster construction. They're keeping just 2 quarterbacks, and Lance isn't one of them. I know that sounds crazy given the investment, but hear me out. Justin Herbert is obviously locked in as the starter. Taylor Heinicke brings legitimate starting experience and has proven he can manage games when called upon. The issue with Lance isn't just the money, it's that he simply hasn't shown enough improvement since joining the team. Remember that preseason performance where Tony Jefferson basically made the roster by picking him apart? That wasn't just a bad game, it was a window into where Lance really stands right now. The guaranteed money hurts, sure, but using a roster spot on a quarterback who can't contribute meaningfully doesn't make sense when you're trying to build a championship roster. They'd rather eat the money and use that spot on someone who can actually help them win games. Now, moving to the backfield, the running back room presents its own challenges. They're likely keeping 4 backs: Najee Harris, Omarion Hampton, Kamani Vidal, and Hassan Haskins. But here's where it gets interesting. Rocket Sanders has been getting rave reviews from the coaching staff, and when coaches start talking like that, you need to pay attention. The problem is, he's going to have to beat out someone, and that someone is probably Vidal. Sanders brings a different skill set, but he's essentially starting from scratch with this team. Vidal has the advantage of familiarity with the system and special teams value. It's going to come down to who looks better in live action, but right now, Vidal has the edge simply because he's already proven he belongs in this offense. Next is a wide receiver position, and that might be the most competitive on the entire roster. They're looking at keeping 6 receivers, and that top 6 feels pretty set. Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, Mike Williams, Darius Davis, Trey Harris, and Keandre Lambert-Smith. Notice who's not on that list? Some names that might surprise you. Jalen Reagor has been getting consistent praise from the coaching staff, but praise doesn't always translate to roster spots. The same goes for Brenden Rice, who's sitting at about 8th on the depth chart right now. Rice had a disappointing rookie season with injuries and mental errors, and he's going to have to completely turn that around to force his way onto this roster. The reality is they're not keeping 7 receivers this year like they did last season. The depth at other positions is too good to waste a spot on a 7th receiver who might not even contribute on special teams. It's a numbers game, and right now the numbers don't favor some of these bubble guys. Here's where things get really interesting, the tight end position. Everyone expects Will Dissly, Tyler Conklin, and Hayden Hurst to make it. But I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Tucker Fisk is making this roster. From weeks 10 through 18 last season, Fisk ranked as the 14th best run-blocking tight end in the NFL and 5th in gap blocking. Those aren't just decent numbers, they're elite production numbers. This coaching staff has made it clear they want to establish a physical running game. Fisk gives them that 280-pound sledgehammer they need to move people around in short yardage situations. When you see him lined up, you know exactly what's coming. And sometimes that psychological advantage is just as valuable as the physical one. And if I talk about the offensive line depth, it is probably the strongest it's been in years. They're keeping 9 linemen, which gives them incredible flexibility. The interesting name here is Branson Taylor, their 6th-round pick. He's not a lock by any means, but when you look at the future of this line, he might be the only young interior piece they have moving forward. That has to factor into their thinking. Now let's flip to the defensive side, where the decisions get even tougher. The defensive line is going to be a rotation-heavy group, and that creates opportunity for some unexpected names. I have 6 guys making it, but the surprise might be those who don't make it. Otito Ogbonnia, a former draft pick of the previous regime, finds himself on the outside, looking in. When nobody's talking about a player during the offseason, that's usually not a good sign. The new coaching staff has no allegiance to him, and they've brought in veterans like Khalil Mack to fill those roles. Sometimes a fresh start is exactly what a player needs, but that fresh start might have to come with a different team. The secondary is where this gets really complicated. They're keeping 11 defensive backs total, 6 cornerbacks and 5 safeties. The cornerback room has some tough decisions, with Tarheeb Still, Cam Hart, and Dante Jackson feeling like locks. But here's the shocker. Trickweezy Bridges, their 7th-round pick, doesn't make the initial cut. Being a 7th-round pick doesn't guarantee you anything in this league. Just ask Cornelius Johnson, who had every connection to this coaching staff and still got cut. Bridges is going to have to earn his spot through special teams contributions and camp performance. The competition with guys like Josser Taylor and Dean Leonard is going to be fierce. The safety group keeps 5, with Derwin James obviously leading the way. But Tony Jefferson making this roster might surprise some people. His performance last season when thrust into action showed this coaching staff they can trust him. At his age, he's not a long-term solution, but he's exactly the kind of veteran depth piece championship teams need. Linebacker might be the thinnest position group on the roster. They're only keeping 4, which means someone like Dion Henley and Junior Colson need to stay healthy. The surprise cut here could be Del'Shawn Phillips, despite being brought in specifically for special teams. When you're trying to build a 53-man roster, every spot matters. And if someone else can provide similar special teams value while also contributing elsewhere, Phillips might find himself on the outside. The edge rusher room keeps 4, Khalil Mack, Tuli Tuipolatu, Bud Dupree, and Kyle Kennard. This group has veteran leadership and pass rush upside, but the depth beyond these 4 is concerning. If injuries hit this position, they're going to have to get creative with their packages. So here's the thing about all these predictions. They're based on what we know right now. Training camp is going to change everything. There's always that undrafted free agent who comes out of nowhere and forces his way onto the roster. There's always that veteran who looks washed up until he gets back on the field and reminds everyone why he's been in the league for a decade. The beauty of this roster construction is that Joe Hortiz and his staff have given Jim Harbaugh legitimate competition at almost every position. That's going to push everyone to perform at their highest level, which ultimately benefits the team. But it also means some tough conversations are coming. When you have this much depth, you're not just competing for a roster spot, you're competing for a career. Some of these guys who don't make it in Los Angeles might not get another opportunity. That's the harsh reality of the NFL, but it's also what makes these next few weeks so compelling to watch. The Chargers are in a position they haven't been in for a while. They're actually having to cut good players because they have better players. That's a championship-level problem to have, and it's exactly where this franchise needs to be if they want to compete with the best teams in the AFC.